Hello everyone. Today is going to be the second part of the 0.9.0 game balance changes recap. This time we're going to be talking about the nerfs, and oh boy, I am not very happy about the nerfs that Wargaming has doled out, because I think they are fundamentally flawed, and honestly from just a game enjoyment perspective, they are very poor. As always though, thank you guys for dropping a subscribe on my channel. I much appreciate it. Still trying to grind for that 100k so we can do that big 100k subs giveaway. So much appreciated. The first ship that I'm going to be covering is the one you see currently being played, the Henry IV. The nerf to the Henry IV is a significant acceleration reduction. Now don't get me wrong, I absolutely think that Henry was in a pretty damn dumb spot when it comes to acceleration. It was insanely difficult to hit when actually good players were juking with acceleration, but the changes they made are honestly so stupid. Right now, look at this, I'm gonna accelerate from standstill to full speed in a straight line. This is the new Henry IV acceleration. They have basically gutted the acceleration values on the ship to the extent that you honestly feel like you're sailing around in a battleship more than anything. And I think this is a terrible way of nerfing the ship. Why not deal with one of the main culprits, one of the main issues, the speed boost? The speed boost is what gives the Henry IV too much mobility. Because in doing this change, well, they're basically making the ship feel like a battleship when you don't have speed boost active, and you feel entirely reliant on that speed boost gimmick to actually feel like a proper cruiser again. This is, in my opinion, very poor design, because, well, you end up being even more reliant on your gimmick, and I don't understand why Wargaming are often so reluctant to nerf the actual gimmick that is causing the issues. Instead of attacking the ship itself. This is not the first time they've done this. Yu Yang comes to mind. Wargaming stated that the issue with the Yu Yang was that radar Yu Yang was too powerful, and instead of nerfing the gimmick, that is the radar, they nerfed basically everything else. They nerfed the guns and the torpedoes on the ship instead, and they basically butchered the ship in random battle play. Back then it was still competitive meta though, so the same people who played it in randoms stopped playing it in randoms and just played it in competitive for the radar instead. So they keep nerfing the core ship when what they should be focusing on is the gimmick. Did the Henry need a nerf? Absolutely. Do I think they went way too ham on this one? Oh yeah. Oh yes they did. There was no need to completely butcher the acceleration. Does it mean the Henry is in a terrible state? No. The Henry is still pretty okay. It doesn't feel nearly as fun as it used to with that incredible handling, but it's not like it's the end of the world. It will probably limit its usage in competitive, but for random battles where you don't use the acceleration gimmicks as much as just the full speed kiting around, it's still a pretty strong tier 10 cruiser. Still though, I really don't like the approach they chose. My Henry build, however, has not changed much. Still running very much the standard, which is turret survival, speed boost, AA, rudder shift. Actually, here there is... I've been playing with rudder shift and it's been working okay, but to mitigate these new issues, you can absolutely run propulsion. In fact, propulsion might even be better than steering gears now. It depends on your playstyle. I've kind of given up on the whole acceleration juking, because I think the acceleration now is so poor that even with the acceleration module, it feels off, and I'd rather just have my proper rudder shift instead. But this is a choice. This is a player choice. I'm not gonna say A is better than B. You're gonna have to test it yourself and see which one feels more enjoyable. For a lot of you, you might just go the acceleration, understandably. This one I leave up to you. Concealment, or if you wanna go for Dakka, increased firing elevation, aka the legendary reload module, and finally more Dakka. For comp, I'm not gonna get into that. People tend to run a lot of range and concealment in comp. Actually, I'm not even sure what the meta is nowadays. I haven't touched that with a 10-foot pole in a long time. Ever since the ships became what they are right now, I've kind of lost interest in that aspect. Sorry about that. Captain build-wise, very much random battle oriented, which is priority target, adrenaline rush, superintendent, concealment expert, IFHE. The reason for IFHE on the Henry is of course that you pen that 51mm threshold or the 50mm threshold, which means you can farm the likes of Moskvas and Stalingrads and various other ships that have 50mm plating. Expert marksman, if you have honor, you run it. You of course, if you have honor, he's really good on Henry because he benefits from both. Expert loader, and finally a jack of all trades, especially important now when the speed boost is so damn important for the maneuverability. And reducing the cooldown with the flag and that to 81.2 seconds of suffering is very, very welcoming indeed. The second ship that they nerfed is the Kléber. Yes, another French ship. And once again, I won't for a second claim that the Kléber wasn't in need of nerfs. The Kléber is pretty much, or was, horrendously broken. But the approach Wargaming took to nerfing it, once again, in my opinion, completely misses the mark. The issue with the Kléber was, well, it did far too much damage, and it had far too much survivability considering how fast and stealthy it was. Either of those two things could have been alleviated either by, for example, reducing the impact that the reload boost has, the gimmick. Basically, when Kléber pops reload booster, it gains insane DPM. They could have nerfed that. Or alternatively, they could have made it so that the ship eats more damage, which would have meant that engaging was significantly riskier. Instead, what they chose to do is they nerfed the concealment. So what this means is that the ship's detectability range has been increased from 8.88 to 9.88 kilometers. That means full stealth Kléber no longer has a 7 km concealment but a 7.8 km concealment. Even worse, it means that the plane spotting, one of the great issues in random battles was of course dealing with carriers. The fact that your plane spotting was already so poor, 3.9 kilometers, and being easily spotted and hunted down by planes because you have no heal, you have no smoke, and your AA is trash. Well, that has been increased to what, 4.4 kilometers I think with the new build. That's if you run full stealth. The base values is it was increased from 4.83 to 5.38. So significant, you almost have the plane spotting of a cruiser now, which of course means that carriers that, well, already kind of Shrek the Kléber, they can Shrek it even harder now. They also nerfed the smoke firing penalty from 3.6 to 4.15. So, also a big nerf. And finally, another issue that the Kléber had was that the torpedoes were too stealthy, too fast, and too powerful. And honestly, this is something I agree with. This part I agree with. They nerfed the detectability on the torpedoes from 1.4 to 1.8, making it much easier to dodge them. Of course, if you get YOLO'd by a Kléber, it doesn't matter. But this is, in my opinion, another example of Wargaming missing the mark. Why not, once again, nerf the gimmick? The gimmick of this ship was you could have nerfed the torpedoes and then dealt with the gimmick. What made the Kléber fun, what made the Kléber unique was this was a no smoke, no heal, ambush style destroyer. Now of course, once this nerf hit, I changed to the build you're seeing right now, which is long range, boring, HE spamming. I mean, yes, this is absolutely a viable build and I see why people do it. You kite around, you're extremely hard to hit, and then you just spam HE or occasionally ambush somewhat, but in general you just farm using your agility to basically be impossible to hit. Very powerful and blah blah blah, yada yada yada, but holy moly did I find this gameplay boring. This was the opposite of what made the Kléber fun to me. This was the opposite of what made the Kléber stand out to me. It was that ambush playstyle, and in fact these brief glimpses where I managed to hunt down a destroyer or hunt down a cruiser, this is what made the Kléber fun. So I'm actually still using the same old build. In fact, after playing the long range build, I was like, you know what, I don't even care that they nerfed the concealment. I'm gonna go back into playing my ambush style, even with my poorer concealment and even with all the drawbacks it brings, because it's the only DD that really offers that gameplay, and that's really what I want to enjoy. So I basically completely gone back to that, and now I just enjoy deleting cruisers left, right and center, and even sometimes ambushing the DDs. But this is another example of Wargaming just missing the mark. They nerfed the playstyle. They nerfed the fun playstyle. they didn't actually nerf the issues that makes the Kléber stupid, which is if you YOLO a battleship, for example, he has almost no way of really dealing with you if he's not already angled away. You close the distance so fast, your torpedoes are so fast, they hit so fast, you got that spaced out damage absorption. That means it's really rough to deal with it. And then finally, the DPM. When you pop the reload booster, your DPM is completely ridiculous, completely through the roof. You can just, like, you out-trade cruisers quite easily. Sometimes even without, like, you can even sometimes avoid dodging because the damage saturation combined with your AP damage, if they don't understand to angle, even if you're not getting citadels, is massive. And that was the issue. That I think this Kléber could have been balanced so much better if they would have dealt with the reload booster. They could have dealt with that damage absorption, but why oh why did they have to fiddle with the playstyle and the concealment? Carriers are now even less fun to deal with than the Kléber. Something that already was strong against the Kléber is even better. The original playstyle is even worse, and then the people who'd like to play the long range, boring HEs, well, I'm sorry for calling it boring, I know some people enjoy it, but the long range spammy style, well, that playstyle hasn't been affected at all. Once again, why won't they nerf the gimmicks? Please stop touching the core ship and nerf the gimmicks when quite clearly the gimmicks are the issue, not really the ship itself. As I mentioned, I tried going for the long-range spam style, but honestly, I just find it too boring. The reason I like playing the French DDs is because of their ambush style. Note that the Mogador was also nerfed. Also deservedly. Don't make any mistake in me thinking this ship shouldn't be nerfed. I absolutely think Henry deserved the nerf. I think Kléber deserves the nerf. And I think Mogador deserves the nerf. I'm just completely in opposition in the way these ships are being handled. I feel like it's someone looking at a spreadsheet and going, up, let's tune this down. And without actually knowing what they're doing. Anyway, on the Kléber, we're still running the same old build, which is turret survival, speed boost or speed duration, turret and gun accuracy because you don't have any flak to boost, acceleration because your rudder shift is pretty damn good, concealment because we are running ambush build and duck gun. And same thing here, still the same old build, which is DPM from BFT, survivability from survivability expert, but pretty standard priority, last stand, survivability, concealment, BFT AR, turret traverse to keep up in turns, expert loader to be able to switch ammo type quickly, and finally preventive maintenance. If you do want to run the range build, then of course, or the spammy build, then you trade in things like AFT instead. You can even mix in demo expert in the build if you want. Expert marksman isn't nearly as important, preventive maintenance isn't that important, so you can fit in demolition expert. But I found the playstyle to be so boring and not why I started playing French destroyers to begin with, so I'm not even touching that with a 10-foot pole. I've tried it, not my thing. If you enjoy it, I'm glad you do, not my thing. Moving on. Last but not least, finally we have a nerf for a ship. Oh my god, have we been waiting for it. The Kremlin. The tier 10 Soviet battleship, the monster of tier 10. A ship that is coated in insane armor, 60mm deck armor, which means it's completely immune to Italian sap and basically all HE in the game with very few exceptions. It's got a 150mm upper belt. The nose, the lower bow is like 60mm. You can't even get overmatched by Yamato. The citadel armor is 430mm, very heavily sloped, incredibly hard to citadel the ship, even when it gives full broadside. You have to be absurdly close to do it. It's got the highest health pool in the game, but somehow magically, even with the highest health pool in the game, it's got a 13.4 km concealment. It's got, what else? The best rudder shift of all tier 10 battleships. It's got 30mm overmatch guns, and with the best penetration in the game. At long range, the only ship that has better penetration than these magical Soviet guns is Slava's magical Soviet guns. Shell velocity is great. It's basically immune to HE because of the things I mentioned. It's got a damage con that reloads in 34 seconds, so you're basically immune to fire damage as well. The torpedo belt, I didn't even mention it. The torpedo belt is 46%. Also insanely good. Much better than pretty much anyone else. There are few exceptions. The turret traverse is completely absurd. It's cruiser level turret traverse. 30 seconds to turn your turrets left and right. The AA damage is monstrous on this thing. It is a absolute living beast that can kill anything in its path. When nose in like this, I'm being shot at by cruisers left, right and center. I'm practically taking no damage. They'll farm my superstructure, but you know what? Once the superstructure is saturated, the damage will basically drop off, and I have no issues overmatching their armor with ease with these insane guns. Oh man, add in something like Kuznetsov, that the best commander in the entire game, which gives you a damage con, a heal, and increases the dispersion of everyone shooting you. And you know what you need to do to proc this amazing commander? You just need to take damage. That's the only thing. Literally take damage and not die, and you will proc this commander every single game. It's like tailor-made to make the Kremlin's insane survivability even more survivable. Hooray! What an absolute ridiculous overpowered monster of a ship. I can't wait to see how Wargaming has decided to finally nerf this broken pile of... They have reduced the health of the AA mounts by 50%. Yes. That is the extent of the nerf. They took a look at all of this absolute, utter, absurd horseshit, and they decided, you know what the issue is? It's not these guns that for some reason have better penetration than Yamato's guns at 20 kilometers, or the fact that these guns are absurdly accurate at long range, even though it's supposed to be a weakness. No, that's not an issue. It's not the fact that the turret traverse is 30 seconds, which allows you to snipe ships left, right and center, and makes the ship basically impossible to rush. It's not the fact that the concealment for some reason is amazing, or the rudder shift is the best of all tier 10 BBs, or the incredible health pool, or the damage con, or the armor, or the survivability. No, you know what's the issue? If a carrier is in the game, then the carrier has some issues striking the ship late game. That's what they chose to nerf. Really? You know what this nerf does if you happen to get a game where there's no carriers in it? Nothing. Yep, that's right. The nerf does absolutely jack shit if there's not a carrier in the game. And even if there is a carrier in the game, well, why would he really want to strike you when he doesn't know the state of your AA? He has no idea. So there's literally no purpose to strike you. Maybe late game you will be more vulnerable to the carrier strikes, but at that point Kremlin will probably have already won the game. I mean, even then, striking a Kremlin isn't exactly fun, because the torpedo belt is so insanely mitigating, and the fact that it's really hard to get any sort of dot damage on the ship because of the access to the constant damage con. You're not a juicy target anyway. Like, look at this horseshit. This turret traverse makes nothing about this ship makes any sense, and Wargaming chooses to nerf the AA health. What's even more baffling, the truly baffling thing here, is that Henry IV, the ship that was just nerfed, well, that thing has been averaging 50.38% win rate on EU. 50.38. Among the top 50% of players, meaning the better half of the players, that ship has averaged 58.06% win rate. So 50.3 or 50.4 and 58 roughly. The Kremlin, on the other hand, a ship that averages 52.89% win rate among everyone and 61.39% among the top 50%. Like, literally the top 50% has more than Unicom win rate in the ship. That's how stupid this ship is. If you're the better half, then your win rate is better than Unicom. And on the Henry IV, they completely butchered the acceleration, unlike anything I've ever seen before. Yet on this ridiculous, absurd monster ship, what they choose to do is tone down the health of the AA mounts by 50%. What the fuck? I don't even know what to say. Do you change your build in any way? No. Does it impact your gameplay in any way? No. Is the Kremlin any less scary to face as basically any other ship? No. So what's the impact of this nerf? Well, they get to say, hey, we just nerfed the Kremlin. It's absolutely absurd. The fact that Smolensk, the fact that that horseshit thing that flies around and basically squatting on everyone, the fact that that thing hasn't been touched either, I don't know what to say, man. I really don't. There was a time, you know, when Soviet bias used to be a joke. It was a meme, like people, because it wasn't really prevalent in the game. But man, oh man, Wargaming really has done their best to completely change that view. I can't even take this ship seriously. It's so stupid. It's just so stupid. Completely ridiculous. I mean, yes, the Kremlin nerf, not exactly living up to the par. Kléber nerf, brutalized the concealment by 1 kilometer, nerfed the hell out of the torpedoes. On the Henry, brutalized the acceleration in half, completely changed the playstyle. Completely changed the playstyle of the Kléber, and what do they do to the Henry, or what do they do to the Kremlin? Nothing. Nothing relevant related to the playstyle. They just tuned it down a bit. Yes, I'm pretty mad. This is some of the dumbest stuff I've ever seen from Wargaming. I'm glad that they're nerfing it, but honestly, this you can't even take it seriously. What a meme. What an absolute meme. So is the Kremlin still a monster? Yes! Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this vid. If you can be ours, do drop me a subscription on my channel. I appreciate the support. And I will talk to you guys the next time.